Radio presents
the Cyberpunk Lorecast.
Welcome to the Cyberpunk Lorecast, where style is just as important as substance. Welcome to the podcast where we explore the lore, news, and gameplay of the Cyberpunk games and other dystopian worlds. I'm your host, Robots. So, Cyberpunks, it's that time again! Cyberpunk Lorecast! Woohoo! Man, my voice didn't really want to do that, did it? Welcome back. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here, as usual, with my good buddy, Captain Logan, the biggest fan of the Metroid Prime series ever. Welcome back. This is why you need to tune into our hot debates during the pre-show and be one of our patrons, or tune into the live show because we talk about all the hottest and most controversial subjects. But welcome. How's it going, Logan?
It's great. I've been sitting on Metroid Dread waiting for us to finish up recording so I can dive into that because I've been waiting all weekend for them to deliver it. Did you know what's really crazy? This will actually be a weird little thing for Cyberpunk. I've got the collector's edition here.
Ooh, that cover looks really nice.
It's nice. It's got the art book inside. It's got the steel case with a couple art cards.
I like the shiny armor on Samus.
Yeah, it's nice. This box, I kid you not, is almost as big as my Cyberpunk Xbox One X limited edition. That's how big this
size.
box is.
That is the size of those old PC cases that you would get back in like the 90s.
It's bigger than those, actually.
Is it bigger? It looks
bigger.
Yeah. Wow.
It's crazy.
That's
and then
really
the card is like this little tiny thing,
tiny little chip you put in your Switch. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, man, I haven't thought about this. It's not Metroid is not Cyberpunk. That's just future stuff.
No,
not at all.
It's just straight sci-fi. Although I will say that probably the Ascent is the closest thing that I can think of that is Cyberpunk, but gets close enough to Metroid where I think you could maybe have like Samus show up at one of those bars. Yeah,
it kind of bridges the gap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, this week we have another fun what if topic for you guys. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. This week, we're throwing around some ideas. We got a few from the community, and Logan actually had a really fun one for us. So all the credit goes to you, Logan, for this one.
I don't know how we're going to do it.
I've got some ideas for how we're going to tackle this one. So here it is. We're just going to throw this out. What if Cyberpunk 2077 was rated T for teen? Which makes me just kind of smile because, as we know, if you've played through Cyberpunk 2077, this is an M for mature game. This is an M-ass game.
This is a hard M.
This is a hard M game. There is boobies. There is sexual situations. There are sexual situations. There are, the F-bomb drops fairly regularly, especially from one Johnny Silverhand's mouth. So in order to kick this off, I thought it would be really fun to riff on the famous phrase, "Wake the F up, samurai, we've got a city to burn." And we're going to go back and forth. We're just going to riff on this, and we're going to change the first line to make it T for teen. So you can change the F word. You can just completely rephrase it however you want. Okay. So here, I'll start us off. "Wake the crap up, samurai, we've got a city to burn." It doesn't punch as hard that way, does it?
Wake the fork up, samurai. We got a city to burn.
All right, I got one. All right. Wake the fart up, samurai. We've got a city to burn.
Wake up, you goon.
I was taking a drink and I was spitting out. You goon? What? Wake up, you goon. We got to say
thinking like mafia bad guys. They always got the goons, and he's like, "Wake the F up, you goon."
All right, we got some. That's a good one. All right, we got some from our live chat. T-Dub says, "Wake the fudge up." Tizer says, "Wake the frack up." We've got some Battlestar going on here. DJ Steve says, "Wake the heck up."
Oh, they probably would have gone with heck.
They probably would have gone with heck. Wake the heck up. Wake the hell up. That may be hell. They might have gone hell. That's still T for teen, right?
Oh, yeah. Wake the hell up.
Wake the hell up, Cyberpunk.
That's a good one.
We got a city burn.
Yeah.
They probably would have gone that. I also really enjoy when shows use the wrong curse word, like somebody who's like not a native speaker, like wake the bitch up, Cyberpunk.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
It's like that's not you wouldn't use that word there.
What if they probably would have used gonk?
Wake the gonk up.
Like wake up, or like wake up, gonk. We got a city to burn.
Yeah, wake up,
Something like
Chumba.
that.
We got a city to burn. Yeah,
Yeah.
something
Maybe
like that.
samurai is just. I just had a weird side note. I'm trying to think of why people were called. Like, why would he call you a samurai? Like, is he purposely trying to refer to you as a band member, or is that like a fan of? Because it was just the band was called Samurai. Like, why did?
Yeah. I think that was
I
like
don't know.
I have a feeling that was a like call, that was a phrase that he would say to his audience. That was like a stage thing he might have yelled.
Yeah. All of us are a bunch of samurai, maybe.
Right. That was like a stage call.
Now I really want to know. Now I'm really curious as to
what
why
if he
that's
started what if he started every concert with "Wake the fuck up, samurai, we've got a city to burn," and then the audience broke out and yeah, and then grrr, on the guitar, and then they busted into their first song.
I would totally see that.
That would be a pretty awesome way to start every concert.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you can't say that in a T for teen
No,
thing.
can't do it.
Okay.
Not in our Cyberpunk 2017 version. We can't say that.
Nope.
You got to say what the hell.
You gotta say
wake the hell up.
Wake the hell up,
samurai.
or gonk, or
So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, like, what do you do when you first kick up the game? And that's character creation, right?
yes.
And one of the biggest things that came out when Cyberpunk was getting the launch was you could customize your genitalia.
Absolutely.
It was an episode that we covered. And I'm just trying to think, if it was a teen game, you would not have that. And I'm trying to think, would they have actually put more into the regular customizations if you weren't bogged down by feeling so like set on trying to give players the ability to set your genitalia?
If you were just
like, would we have had a better character creation, more options?
if you're just smooth like a Ken doll down there?
Well, not just, they didn't even approach it. They're just like, you have a male presenting female or body, or a female presenting body, and you didn't have to go into the minutia of
They didn't have to spend the time modeling it. They could have just designed more shirts or pants or whatever.
Because it doesn't serve any function outside of the character creator. We don't see it in any of the actual Joy Toy scenes, so it's not like it's
true. You don't
present.
see the male bits or the lady bits anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'm thinking now that Cyberpunk 2077 is a teen game, you don't have any of those dildos, swinging around. There'd be no dildo stores.
That's true.
Anywhere.
That's true. Hey, you know what? I've got an idea here. I've got a fun idea for the way we can parse through all of these things, because you shared with me this Game Ranks article where it lists all the mature rating highlights. So here's what I think we do. I think we take each one of these one by one, and we discuss what would no longer be able to happen in the game and how it might be changed as we go through this list.
I like it.
Okay, because we're kind of doing that already. We just kind of jumped the gun on this. So why don't we start with the first one? Weapons without violence. Weapon without violence is the first one. Mature rated highlights, weapon without violence. Now I have a feeling weapon without violence, you can have that in a teen game. Right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't have to change.
That's fair.
That's just, it's mature rated because there are weapons. There are weapons shown, not necessarily showing violence. You can have that in teen game. So anytime you have like somebody carrying a gun, somebody carrying a knife, a baseball bat with barbs on it, whatever, that's fine. You can still have that. Okay, next one. Moderate or hinted use of illicit drugs. Now we're starting to hit some things, but I feel like most of the time that's okay in T for teen games as long as it doesn't get too explicit.
Nope. Cannot have drugs in a teen game, I don't think.
You can't have reference to drugs, or you can't have use of drugs.
I don't think that drugs are allowed in teen rated games.
Okay. So we wouldn't be able to
you'd probably have to cut drugs out.
Right. Okay. So we wouldn't be able to have the scene when you meet
Dum Dum.
Dum Dum. Yeah. Dum Dum offers you drugs. Dum Dum could not. Dum Dum is a straight edge now. So Dum Dum's a straight edge. What else? What else would change?
Yeah.
Dum Dum would be like, instead of like, here, have a hit of this, Dum Dum would offer you a lollipop.
So people in the Moxie Club, they wouldn't be zoned out on drugs. There wouldn't be inhalers around. They'd all either have to be dancing or drinking, because you can drink in a teen rated game.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, no one would be no drug use would be available out there. You wouldn't have anyone like doing drugs on the street. All those inhalers would be gone.
All the inhalers.
Dildos and inhalers were out of the game.
Out of the game. You wouldn't have any of the drug shops, any of the stores where you could see any of the paraphernalia in the windows. Any of that stuff wouldn't be anywhere, or on people's desks, or in like the back rooms of any of the clubs or offices. Any of that stuff, not there.
Yep. I'm trying to, I don't think you can, because I just checked one of my favorite games, Outer Worlds, and that is a mature game, and it has inhalers, because I was like, wait, can you have inhalers? I don't know that you can actually have inhalants of any kind in a teen rated game. Mm-hmm. Someone can fact check me on that.
Okay.
But yeah, you wouldn't have any drugstores. You wouldn't have any sex shops. Those would all have to be like bookstores or
just reading books.
They could be brain dances. You wouldn't be able to have half of the drug related brain dances.
Nope.
Like that first brain dance that you do with Judy, they do a hit of an inhaler
before they go in. Yeah.
That would have to change. You wouldn't be able to have that in there.
Yep. So instead, they would just take they'd probably high five and just take a swig of
you can drink. Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. They would probably hit like a bottle that's covered.
They'd shotgun a beer and crush it on their foreheads.
Yep.
And then they'd go in. That's
they'd have to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next on the list, we have weapon with violence. That can happen in teen games. You can have weapon with violence. Criminal act without violence. Those can happen.
Yeah.
So that's still T for T. Description of the consuming of illicit drugs. Can we have descriptions of the consuming of illicit drugs?
Ooh, just the description?
Just the description.
If they're describing the act, I don't think you can. I think if it is like a medical drug, then I think it's illicit. Fine.
Yeah, so this is probably not.
But the illicit ones, no, those would probably have to get kicked out. So no drugs in Night City.
None of the conversations about like, oh, somebody was high on whatever. Nope, none of that.
Yeah.
Derogatory language.
Nope, that's definitely.
So no derogatory language. I have a feeling that has to do with racist language. That also has to do with like.
Do you? Chumba would be good, but I don't think you could say like
fine.
gonk or something.
Yeah.
Would gonk count? Maybe. Is that a derogatory term?
I think. Well, here's where things get subjective, because these what defines a game as M for mature or T for teen is based on a board, and they said it, and so it's subjective. So if that board feels like a term like gonk is being used in a derogatory manner to like put somebody else in a negative light or something that can be seen as racist or, just like particularly mean or something like that, or violent, then maybe it just depends on how it hits them.
I think gonk would probably be okay. Shoom would probably be okay.
Shoom would be okay because that's a positive thing.
Yeah. Borg would probably be okay. Corpo would probably be okay.
Yeah, those would be all right.
Doll is questionable because doll's referring to the sex workers, and you definitely can't have sex workers in a teen rated game.
Right. Yeah, it depends on if they catch it. If they catch it as that, then no. If they think it just...
Do you think input would be because it is a derogatory term. You're referring to someone as literally just the thing that you sex.
Right. It's true. But everyone uses it so casually to mean just their boyfriend or girlfriend.
But it's a mature rated game. We gotta make this teen.
Yeah,
we gotta make a teen.
Yeah,
I don't think you can refer to anyone as an input.
And input or output like that. That's just kind of because it is so casually derogatory. That might make it even worse. The fact that it's so casual.
Can't have output or input. Those are out.
Yeah, those are out.
Kibble? No, that's food. Never mind. I think that's food terms. You can't use stim or dwarfs.
Yeah, because
both of those are out.
Right.
Can't do drugs. I think that's about it, honestly. I think most of these other ones are good. I mean, rocker boy or rocker girl those are
okay.
That's more of a description of the person. I think that's up there with like corpo. I think that would be fine. But that's somebody who's like a majority of them.
Yeah, that's not necessarily derogatory. Okay, so next on the list, verbal aggression. That's fine.
Yeah,
like, screw you. Like, that's fine. As long as they're not breaking any certain specific word boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Violent acts. Those are fine as long as they're not bloody. Like punching someone in the face is a violent act. You can put that in.
No decapitation.
No decapitation.
You have to like any kind of like limb removal. I think bumps it up to mature.
Yeah, or excessive amounts of blood, or the shooting in the head, like things like that. Usually, are pretty much right.
If it's a robot, I think you're fine. I think you can get away with that. But I don't think that any humans or animals can be cut up with any kind of weapons. Like, I think that's like strictly that bridges up to the mature rating for that one.
Okay, this next one's pretty good. Sexual pleasurement.
Nope. That is definitely
it's not
out.
Pleasure.
Not
it's
an our game.
Pleasurement, which makes me think not just the enjoyment of it, but the giving someone else enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
Seems to be.
So all those Joy Toy, like the Meredith relationship, that would have to be
right out.
That would just be like a cut. Like they would just straight up, like you would cut. Say yes.
Right.
And then he'd wake up the next morning.
Right. The memory, like Johnny's memories of like Rogue or Alt, like any of that stuff, like just like whoop, gone, like skip to the next part.
Actually, I think that whole scene would have to be completely rewritten. Like that whole Rogue Johnny scene after the band, after the show, that whole thing has to get rewritten because you can't have him drinking, or no, you could have him drinking.
You can have some drinking and then maybe kissing and then fade to, like they lay down and fade to black. And then the next thing you have, they're like standing up arguing and then she runs out the door.
Yep.
That would be it. It would just be like implied, right? That's about it.
Yeah. Not nearly as impressive as it was.
Right. So none of that. I'm trying to think.
Exposure to danger.
Exposure. Well,
no, I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead.
Consumption of illicit drugs. We already covered that. That's just more illicit drug stuff. Violence description.
Can't talk about disembowelment or decapitation or dismemberment. All of those are out. But you could definitely talk about gunshot wounds, knife wounds, illnesses, things are like a virus, things like that. Like
some
I think
of
a
this
lot
stuff
of
would apply to things like the cyber psycho quests. Like even some of the quest text about like what this person did, why you're after them. A lot of that quest text might actually have to be revised.
There's that whole cyber psycho quest where you're at the wedding shoot and there's just blood and guts everywhere. That whole quest has to get redone because you wouldn't be able to have any of the dismemberment, the blood, or any of the people talking about it at that quest. Like that whole thing would have to get completely done. Like they would all probably have to be alive, and you'd probably have to have the cyber psycho there, and you would have to either
they'd be like wounded on the ground. They'd all be like, oh, just like holding their stomachs, like, oh, I was hurt. Like oh my god, I'm just trauma team would have to like be there patching them up. Like you wouldn't have just bodies laying around at that scene. That whole or they're scared. They're all scared in the corner, and some people are hurt, but there's not like blood all over the place.
The whole opening scene with the scavs. Is it scavs? The scavengers? Yeah, scavs. Where you're pulling the chick out of the bathtub
Yeah.
That whole thing has to get completely done too, because most of the bodies of like the hookers on the tables completely disemboweled. That whole thing would have to get covered up. They'd just be plastic sheets over people.
Yep.
All of the inhalers and drugs that are on there, all of that gets taken out. Those are just, ammo crates or random food things here and there. The whole scene with her in the bathtub has to get changed up. She has to be wearing clothes, and you probably wouldn't even show most of that.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, I thought about that too when we were talking about the even just the topic. My mind went to that whole quest line of just like almost all of that just has to be changed.
Yeah, that's like one of the better quests in the very beginning. It's one of the starter things that kind of sets the tone, sets the mood. Like, and that was, it was an E3 showcase that they showed off. That whole thing is like out there. You can't do any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. Absolutely. Here, let's go to exposure to danger. That one's okay.
Yeah.
Assuming the danger isn't off the charts. Exposure to death corpse. Death corpse. That sounds redundant.
That is.
I can't think of a corpse that doesn't involve death. Undeath corpse. That's zombies. Like a vampire or
zombies
zombie?
Would be fine. But I think death corpse, as long as I think as long as they're just the body, it's fine. I think it's if you were to look at, like, for example, we were just talking, if you were to talk about like the hooker that's on the table at the scav's apartment, where like most of her augments are removed and most of her body parts are removed and stuff.
Right.
Like that's exposure to death with corpse, but to a degree that you would have to change that up. Like no bones, no disembowelment,
nothing that looks like
all of that. Like, I wonder if they would actually have to change the Maelstrom gang, because the Maelstrom gang,
because their faces are all, they look like they're in the middle of an operation half the time.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that would be too much.
Maybe.
I think you would probably tone it down just to pass it through the board for that.
Yeah, possibly. Or put their faces in a hood or something, so you can't see the fleshy bits.
That could fix it.
Yeah.
So all the Maelstrom in Cyberpunk 2077 teen rated are all hooded.
Yeah, so you don't see the fleshy bits, so you don't.
But you can see the
electronics,
red eye,
right?
And it's just like covered, so it's just like a red dot in the darkness.
Right.
That would fix it.
Yeah,
we could get that.
We can get that through. Yeah, there we go. That's the ticket. yeah,
that's how we do it.
That's the ticket. All right, here we got body injury. Suppose as long as that's not too gory, something like a bruise that's not bleeding.
Yeah, you could get away with that. I think.
Foul language. So that, of course, there's boundaries there. You drop too many F-bombs. Yeah. That's a problem. That's what we were joking about at the beginning.
Yeah. I think that one is subjective. I think we'd probably have to submit like a full list of the words that we want in there.
Yeah, and it also has to do with how often they're used. Like if every other sentence is dropping a bunch of foul language and people are just yelling all the time, then the board's going to be like, okay, there's a problem here. But if it's just an occasional, shit or bitch or whatever, then like they're probably going to say, okay, that's fine. It's T for teen. Then sexual language, that's where if things are getting particularly descriptive, then they're going to have a problem with it.
Yeah, they would. I don't know if is it kind of the same way that like PG-13 has, where you get 3 F-bombs before it turns into an R rating.
That's like, from what I understand, it's not a hard and fast thing. It's a subjective determination by the board. And this is something that has changed over time, because you go look back at old games, and old games that were rated M today would be rated T. It's not just like it's a very subjective decision. So I don't know. I don't know for sure how this works. I don't think you can just, squeeze a certain number of F-bombs into a game.
I'm checking out the ESRB because this is who we're after. At least in America, there's PEGI and other boards that you have to get it across. But teen, we probably should have described what teen would cover right off the bat.
Yeah, I guess we could have. All right.
Okay, so teen rating implies that content is generally suitable for ages 13 and up, may contain violence, suggestive themes, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling, or infrequent use of strong language.
Infrequent. Right. That's what I was talking about with the whole, like, they can drop some stuff here and there, but it can't be like every other line in the dialogue.
Yeah. Don't know if it's like a limit, but infrequent, I think would say.
It's subjective. That's the whole thing. It's the board saying, like, this feels a certain way or it feels another way. It's not like they're running this through like a language parser and they're going like X, one out of every so many words in this game is a bad word. Like it's not like a formula they use.
Yeah, definitely.
So for sexual language, it's like, really, if there's like a F-bomb in there somewhere, they may not even catch it. But like, if it's dropping up and if it's showing up in language a lot, they're going to definitely notice it. It's that sort of thing.
I don't know that you'd be able to get through with sexual language. Like strong language is what they say. I think you could probably get away with like some cursing, but I don't know if you could get away with
I don't think so.
Anything that's suggestible. Like suggestive themes is as far as they're willing to let you get.
Yeah.
And even then that's mostly like right up until and then like innuendo.
Right. So a lot of the language around the moxes, a lot of the there's a lot of gangs. There's a lot of things that like gang members will yell at you as you're walking around them, or
like the whole Evelyn Parker timeline, like with her going to dreams and you going to dreams and stuff like that. Like all of that's got to change. Like how would you change that? Like in this scenario, we would have to move her to an office, a store. Like what is her job if she was prior because her whole role is a prostitute. She is a personal escort.
Like was she like his personal assistant or something instead?
I mean, you would probably have to, right?
She was his accountant.
She would have to be close to him, and it can't be sexual. So it would have to be, or if it is, it's like they're in a relationship.
Right. It's just kind of it's very vaguely described. It's the kind of thing that like, if you understand it, you get it, but otherwise you're not going to pick up on it if you're younger.
And so she would pretty much have to be someone that is working for Arasaka for her to understand most of this information. She couldn't have gleaned it from her interactions with him as a prostitute.
Yeah. That totally changes the plot line.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you think about that? Think about this while we do the mid break, because we got to break from the mid break, and we're going to come back, and there's some more stuff on this list, including some other things that will definitely change the course of this game. So you think about that for a little bit. We'll be right back. All right. This is the part of the show where we get to thank our patrons, including our newest patron, Lord Tizer. Thank you for signing up. Lord Tizer was in the chat. I don't know if you're still here, but thank you, buddy. Welcome to the Patreon. I hope you are enjoying your benefits, including ad-free episodes. You get the show a day early, or if you show up on our live stream, then you get to see it while we record it, which is also very, very cool. And thank you to everybody else who has helped to support the show. We love that you guys are here supporting us. We really do appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. And I'm letting it reload. For some reason, the Patreon page is being really slow right now, but I was going to call out the total number of patrons. But thank you to everybody. You guys have been awesome. Do I have anything else to share this week? I don't think I have anything else new. I'm still throwing around ideas for the t-shirts. I haven't quite landed on exactly what I want to do for the different logos, because I still need to figure out what I can and can't do when it comes to licensing and that sort of thing. So I was thinking about maybe doing the gangs and stuff. I started looking into that a little bit and kind of got stuck on some ideas. So if you have any thoughts on what might be fun ideas for shirts and stickers and things to do for the Patreon, send me some ideas. If you have some specific ideas, especially maybe even some symbols and things that might be fun to use for t-shirts, let me know what you think. I would love to take some of those ideas and run with it, especially if you would wear them if you think they're really, really good ideas. I'd love to use those. But if we help you get through your workday or your workout or anything like that, then we'd love to have you join us on the Patreon. And if you can't afford to do that, then you know what? Just sharing it with your friend or leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts would also help out the show as well. So thank you for being there and for supporting us. And if that's something you can't do either, then just being here and listening is also really appreciated. So thanks for being there. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show. Here we go. Yeah, Patreon just like took a dump. Just took a crap. Okay, there we go. 19 members. Thank you to all 19 of you. There we go. Now it finally reloads. It was just like 404 on me. I was like, what are you doing? All right, so back to the discussion. We have most of these are kind of the same stuff still, right? Yeah. Foul language, sexual language, blood. So limited amounts of blood. This is going to be a big one because blood shows up a lot, right?
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to have it on any of the bodies. So every body that you do just kind of like stays there. You might be able to get away with it in like a couple special moments, like certain quests where you're saving it because it's important to the story. But overall, and I genuinely can't think of any moment in the game where we are dealing with someone outside of like Jackie who's been hurt. So I think like Jackie in the heist where he's shot, that's probably like one of the opportunities where you're going to be able to use blood to show the importance of that situation. Like it's serious, like he's bleeding. But yeah, well, like
general combat, people, like when
combat would all have to be oil at that point, if anything, or just not blood at all.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many times you shoot people or run up on them with a katana, and you're just like, headshotting guys and blood splatting out, and you're just like, so much of that would have to be reduced or removed, and
probably just removed. I mean, you have to at that point if you're trying to get that much combat into the game. Yeah, like you wouldn't be able to do it. It would just be, you'd just be hitting them and knocking down the health bars. And then eventually the health bar would fall or empty, and then they would just fall down.
Right.
No blood.
No blood. No cutting people, people's heads or arms off with my katana, which is sad because I love chopping people up.
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do any of that.
None of that.
That kind of goes into one of the things later on too. Like further down the list, some of the things that I was noticing, like the sexual exploitation, no joy toys out of the, what do we have? 4? Yeah,
there's only like 4 in the game or something like that.
So that's easy. That's easy.
Yeah,
you could get rid of that.
Right.
Right. I think there's one quest where you go talk to a joy toy, and she clues you into someone who's in an apartment building who's a cop, staking out like a couple people. So that's just a random person. She's changed to something like that. All the other joy toys, that's easy. Just take them out of the game. They're not integral to the game. Evelyn Parker definitely is. So you'd have to completely change her job, her setting, how she gets her information. All of that's a big rewrite right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Even some of the history, I mean, we go back to the Moxes, even some of the history of some of the people that you meet there. Some of just the understand, like, and it's hard to remember all of the conversations you have, all of the little, like even just the little bits of dialogue that pop up along the way. The little side quests that come up, for the next one on the list is description of illicit drugs, consumption or trafficking. How many side quests have something to do with like, oh, this gang is trying to move through this area and they're doing this thing, like that has to be changed.
The whole opening for the nomads needs to get changed. If you're talking about trafficking in a general sense, because you're moving that iguana, and if they're just talking about like pure trafficking, then that would have to get changed.
This is illegal drug trafficking, so that's just illegal.
Less of a concern then.
Yeah, illegal product, I guess that would be different. Sexualization. So that's more vague, but the like sexualization of a person. So that could
all
be
the ads,
but that could, yeah, all the ads, like you have the images, the TV shows that sexualize people,
Watson
but
horror
even just like
gone.
the clothing. I mean, think about some of the characters and the clothing that they wear, some of the things that people walk around on the streets with. Even just like the crop tops some of the women wear, and like the
or don't.
There's a lot of just in
Like
general
the Spanx that the guys wear that walk around to show off their junk. Like that's got to change.
Yeah.
Those are just regular shorts at that point. But
Right.
yeah. All of the clothing for most of the civilians would have to change. Every single ad in that game has to get removed and replaced with something. I think the all food one is maybe the safest one, but even
Yeah.
some of the other ones
Absolutely.
are like they're either mutilation or sexualization or sexual exploitation, consumption of drugs. I think maybe the real skin one could probably stay. Budget arms could probably stay. Man, there's a lot of those that are going to have to get removed and changed out with something that's less.
Yeah.
Less,
do you think they would have had even issues with Judy's like short top?
No, she's covered pretty well. I don't think that would be. I think that would probably fall under sexual theme or
it's sexualization. She's kind of. It is a little bit like there's a reason
now I gotta
she's.
take a look.
I mean, I pulled up images. There's a reason why she's scantily clad. It's to make her a little bit more feminine and attractive, right? Like,
yeah,
like she's scantily clad like that on purpose.
I think her top's fine,
but
I think you could probably like that would fall under suggestive themes, probably.
Right, that might be okay. T for teen, wise.
I mean, let's take a look at like now I'm second guessing myself. Final Fantasy VII remake,
right?
With what's her name?
Tifa. Yeah, same kind of like tank top kind of thing going on there. Yeah,
that is a T for teen rated game. So yeah, if you can get Tifa in the game, we're looking the way that she does, you could probably keep Judy.
Yeah,
you might have to tone it down like a little bit, but you could probably make that into a sports bra and have it fly. That would probably be the safest change.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about like some of these other characters. Like, do any of the guys have like really tight pants that seem a little revealing? Because they're a little form fitting around. Like I'm just thinking
the whole quest line to find Evelyn Parker, where you have to go to the Ripper Doc, who is the transvestite.
Yeah, that guy's got a super weird outfit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You'd probably have to change that up. I think most of the guests in there are probably good, but most of the stuff that's actually in that room and him would probably have to get toned down a lot. Like you would not be able to be as expressive with any of that.
Right. I'm trying to think, is there a point at which River or Carrie are wearing something that's a little bit like Carrie walks around in his like robe at one point. Is his underwear peeking out at some point? Like, I'm trying to remember, like little things like that might have to get touched up. I
think it's mostly fine for that stuff though. I can't think of too much out of that. That would be like most of the guys are fine. They don't really exploit most of the guys sexually.
But I want to be fair though, because I don't want to just like, I don't want anyone to be they picked on the women, but they didn't pick on the guys. Like I want to like, if they're sexualizing things and they're going to be, I want to make sure that we're covering all our bases. Right.
I mean, I would look at like the Japanese-ish band as a good judge of whether or not that would pass for T for teen. And I think they would pass for T for teen. Yeah. I don't think anything that they're wearing is too suggestive.
Right. And sexual exploitation.
Suggestive.
Yeah. Sexual exploitation goes along. That's the next one on the list. I think that kind of fits along with sexualization. Next one. Okay. So this is where it really starts getting interesting. Intentional death. So
all all the guys that jump off the building and land in front of you as you're walking around, all the suicides on top of the building.
Suicides. The suicide ending is no longer an option.
Completely. Well, suicide's on the list as well as a separate thing.
Right. Right. But suicide, intentional death are kind of same thing. They're basically synonyms, right? But the suicide ending, you can't have that as an option.
No. Yeah. That whole option has to be taken out. There's also that guy that's he's one of the veterans of the war that you find. And he's like on the he doesn't want to talk to anyone. And I can't remember why you go talk to him. But it's for the medication. He's got the painkillers, the really strong painkillers, and you meet him, and he's basically threatening you to get out of there because he doesn't want to deal with you. You talk him down from that and say like, "Hey, we need these meds to take back to the fixer," and he ends up offing himself after that,
right?
And it's like in front of you,
yeah. So that's
like
startling, and you wouldn't have that.
That whole ending to that quest would have to change. It wouldn't be nearly as impactful because that was one of those quests that I was really, really moved by. I was like, man, that sucks. This is a harsh life that he had to leave, and he's dead alone with no one to do anything for him.
Yeah, the crucifixion.
So that whole quest is probably got to get out. Which one?
Crucifixion quest line. We talked about that last week. That comes up again. That would have to change.
That would, all of that. Too.
I don't know how you revise that to make that even work. Like, what would he do instead that would have anywhere near the impact of something like that? I don't know
if you could you even have that? Because it's a death sentence at this point.
Right. But if you wanted to do something similar, like a religious something similar to make a point, I can't think of anything else similar enough that would make a point.
It would have to be performative, and it would have to be like a sermon or something that he says, and you would have to just
the Sermon on the Mount. You could tie him up to it. You could tie him up there, and he'd stay up there for 3 days and 3 nights, or some symbolic thing, but that just wouldn't hit the same way, right? It would not have the same effect.
Yeah. It wouldn't be nearly as, and you wouldn't have that journey of redemption.
Right.
For a criminal.
And Jesus didn't actually stay on the cross for 3 days. He only stayed up there for a very short period of time before he passed away. But I guess you could have him get whipped and then carry the cross down a length of street and then put himself up on the cross and then symbolically be up there for some amount of time and then get off it. But he didn't die. That still wouldn't have the same impact, you actually kind of touched. I think to do that quest justice, I think you would have to have him doing a performative thing through the streets with carrying a cross. Right. That's about as close as you could get.
That's kind of pushing it. I did notice that there's not very much mention about religion in this list. Like ratings don't seem to impact religion.
Yeah. They don't seem to really mind that at all. It really doesn't seem to matter. And there are, like this quest, there are some very specific religious things. There are some very specific political things that show up in this game. And yet that doesn't seem to affect the rating at all.
That's interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can say whatever you want when it comes to religion or politics, and it's not going to affect the rating of the game.
Huh.
Really interesting. All right. Next on the list, nudity. We've talked about that. You'd have to cover up, a lot of characters. Also, you'd have to make sure that the characters are smooth like Ken dolls in all the right places. Or if they're not, there's not the glitch where certain parts stick out through the clothes when you swap the clothes.
So that's a whole thing. All of that in modeling for the characters would the clothes would be modeled on them. Like you wouldn't even model out any of that. You'd have the base shape and then you would build the clothing on top, and the clothing would be part of the body. Yeah. And you wouldn't even be able to change
like Fallout 76. The underwear is just part of the base model.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So that's where you would have to go with that. That's the only way you could actually do that for our teen rated game.
Yep. So you wouldn't end up with any nudity in the game at all. Prostitution, we talked about, completely removed. Sexual relationship, none of that.
You'd be able to have relationships, but I don't think you'd be able to have anything sexual. It would just be conversations.
Yep. Consumption of illicit drugs, we talked about that. Okay, here we go. Mutilation. Off the list. And this isn't just the chopping of arms and heads. This would include And this is, we were talking about the, any sort of augments, like, putting in face augments that mutilate your face and your skin around the edges, or arm augments where you're, putting something in your arm and it's mutilating the skin around your arm, or somebody like Atom Smasher. Like, maybe how do you design Atom Smasher without?
I think you can get away with Atom Smasher.
Can you?
But I think you might have to take out the mantis blades.
The mantis blade. What about his head? Like, you can see like the mutilated skin around the parts of his head that are still flesh.
I think you can get away with that if it's not like it's not like staples and flesh to the thing that it's on.
It's not Frankenstein.
Like, yeah. I think you can get away with Smasher the way he is. He seems pretty robot, toned down compared to the Maelstrom gang.
Yeah.
Smasher's a piece of cake. He's easy.
Right.
But the whole Maelstrom gang's out. Like, you got to change that up. Either hood them or put something over them. Like, they're not nearly as edgy as they are in the game.
Right. Is there anything else mutilated? Or any other scenes, even towards the end of the game, when there's
the whole quest line with River needs to get changed, because a lot of the bodies that are in the barn, I think, deal with mutilation as well. Most of those are covered, but I think you can see some of those bodies. So that would have to get adjusted. That whole quest chain would have to get rehashed and rewritten so that it's not as dark as it is. I think you would really have to pull back on some of that, and it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. Yeah, it might be as interesting. You could probably do it, but man, you'd need a good writer to be able to rewrite most of that.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah. A lot of augments, I think, might even fall into mutilation. Even things where like people are replacing body parts and you just have like gaps where like their mouth is gone because they're like replacing that part of their face. Yeah, even though it doesn't look mutilated, the concept of a missing part of your face is kind of disturbing.
Yeah. There's the quest chain where they're going after the priest, or not the priest, but the monk, and they mutilate his body to teach him, augments aren't bad and you got to get used to it and stuff. Right. That's that whole quest chain. You'd probably just take that right out. You'd probably just remove that, because I don't know that there's unless it was a full conversation. You'd either have to really just rewrite the entire thing or just remove it completely.
Yeah. Man. All right. And we're getting down to the end here. Intense sexual relationship. Of course, that's just more sexual relationship.
No joy toy.
No joy scenes. Suicide. We've already talked about now. And the last one, and I'm sure this is another one of those subjective ones, cruelty.
So here's an interesting one. Because there is something that I've noticed with games that even M-rated games do not touch. And that's any kind of aggression towards children.
Yes. No. Yeah.
And we have kids in Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like that's not something that even the M rating can even mess with. Like, you cannot point a weapon at a child.
No. Yeah. You do not hurt children in games. That's not something anybody wants to be okay with.
And that's because I mean, if you're going for M, I mean, you could do anything you want to anyone else in this game. Doesn't matter what it is. They'll cover just about anything. But man, if you go towards a kid, like, that is just off the table.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, Far Cry 6 has cockfighting in it.
Right.
That is an illegal thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's mutilation. It covers the cruelty towards animals.
Yep. Yep.
That's in the game, and it shocks a lot of people. And it's funny that a lot of people are getting shocked by that, and not the huge amount of body count that you're racking up as you're trying to free this
violence towards human beings. And yet, chickens pecking at each other is a problem. Yeah. But it's a surprise, because, it's the whole Joker thing, like, you do this and nobody bats an eye, and then you do this other thing and everyone goes crazy. But cruelty can cover a lot of different things. It's the shockingness of it. Right.
I think that the most of the cruelty in the game, I know there is some, but generally it is mostly just violence or sexual. Like there's not too much, like I can't think of any torture scenes in the game outside of the river quest line.
There's some, there's like the post torture scenes, like brain dance after a torture scene. Right.
I can't remember anyone.
We have like you've described situations where we end up after a very particular violent scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know that we actually witness a scene of torture. Like in Grand Theft Auto we do, but like not in this.
Yeah, I can't think of anything offhand. Like I'm trying to rack my brain on anything that is in the game that would be considered like cruelty towards people, like a torture scene like that. And I can't think of anything realistically. Like there's a lot of stuff that we do that is cruel, but that would be paired under like violence, which I think would still kind of cover the teen rating,
right? If
it wasn't to the extent that we're seeing, but I can't think of anything in I would love if anyone knows offhand, if they can think of something where you're actually torturing someone.
Yeah. Or even just emotionally abusing somebody could fit under cruelty. And I mean, there are some moments where things get intense, but I can't think of anything that's particularly emotionally abusive. I mean, there are definitely moments of like conflict, but not necessarily what I would consider emotional abuse.
Well, there's the scene like we were talking about where you're trying to find Parker and you're with that Ripper Doc. Judy can get very aggressive and you can get very aggressive towards that Ripper Doc.
Yeah.
You would have to tone that back. You wouldn't be able to abuse him the way that you can in that aspect.
Potentially. Yeah. That does get pretty intense.
Trying to think if there's any offhand that I can think about.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Arson isn't in this list, which I noticed.
Arson is not in the, I mean, that would fit under some sort of like more general violent act.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. Cause you burn the boat when you're with Carrie.
Yes.
And that is an act of violence, but I'm surprised that they aren't trying to, cause arson is definitely an offense that, punishable for quite a long time in most states.
Yeah, I think that's just violent act. I think that would be considered, violent act.
Okay. So we get to keep
that's a very offensive violent act. So if that again, criminal act of violence, like those kinds of things, if that hit the group being particularly, maybe because it was his own boat, that would have been okay. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You do have a violent act where you bomb Arasaka Tower, in that flashback scene. Like that might be something that you'd have to adjust.
You may not be able to actually do that.
How does that get addressed? You just like discussion, like description of violent act. Do you even get to describe that be happening? Or probably, but maybe do you not get to actually experience it in a T for Teen game? I don't know.
I don't think you. So let's say like the Johnny scene where he's being interrogated and his consciousness is being brought up through the Soul Killer. In the background, you see Arasaka Tower burning because of the atomic bomb that was set off. That would have to be removed as well too. The actual Soul Killer experience itself, you may have to actually tweak depending on the cruelty that displays too.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff. So what do we end up with here? We need to wrap this up. What we end up with is a very neutered game. This game has to be very well rewritten. Most of the content has to be stripped out, replaced, rewritten. We end up with something that is not very emotionally impactful. At least not for adults.
I think you could like the Nomad stuff, I think still holds up fairly well. You'd have to get rid of a couple moments in there, but a lot of the Nomad stuff, surprisingly enough, is probably good to go for teen.
The relationship stuff still holds up. That stuff still holds up. Some of the main questline stuff has to be changed. The setting takes a big hit. The combat takes a big hit. The dialogue takes a big hit. A lot of that stuff just does not survive.
So in this world, let's say that like in this scenario, what if Cyberpunk was a big hit? It landed the way it intended. Everyone was loving it, but it was T for teen. Do you think that people like, do you think that the broader audience would enjoy it as much if it was easier to access? Do you think Cyberpunk can survive without that mature rating?
I don't know. I mean, I think it can. It's just a very different thing. It's like what we're describing. If we take Cyberpunk and we move it T for teen, we get Overwatch. That's what we get. True. That's what we get. Like we get Genji. We get Genji and we get like Omnix and we get like, that's what we get. We get that world. Yeah. Which is fine. That's a fun, interesting world, but it's not Cyberpunk. It's not the dark future the same way that this is. I just thought about this and I was just trying to remember. I now realize like what Cyberpunk 2077 as a mature game versus a teen game would look like is the difference between watching the original Ghost in the Shell anime and then the Scarlett Johansson anime or Ghost in the Shell that they released, because the Ghost in the Shell that they released with Scarlett Johansson was PG-13 and you can tell. But if you watch the original Ghost in the Shell, it is an R-rated movie. Right. It is an M-rated anime. That's kind of the distance. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Come join us on the Robots Radio Discord and let us know. Let us know if we missed anything, if there's anything that is glaringly obvious that would have to be cut for this to be a T for teen game. And let us know what if you would actually play it, if you would play this as a T for teen game, if you would still enjoy it, or if that would just completely neuter this for you and make this a completely unplayable mess. I don't know. It would be a completely different game. It would be a totally different thing. Some people complain about this stuff. They're like, why do they have to put all this adult garbage in these games? Why can't people just enjoy the clean version of this stuff? And there's still, I think what we've shown is that like some of the stuff is dark for the sake of being dark, but some of the stuff is emotionally impactful. And there's a reason why it goes there, and like it wouldn't have the same emotional impact if it didn't go there. And so, yeah, it kind of needs to go there if we're going to have that same emotional impact. So it's an interesting debate, I got a weird question. Do you think that cyberpunk as a genre is just something that you shouldn't be subjecting 13-year-olds to then? Can 13-year-olds enjoy cyberpunk? I think, well, again, if it's the okay. So I think this is probably a bigger question for a later time because we're running out of time. If it's the Overwatch version of cyberpunk, if it's the like, let's talk about a future where like people can augment their bodies with robot parts, and we're talking about like that kind of that slim sliver of what is cyberpunk, then that's fine. But if we're talking about like dystopian future part of cyberpunk where like, people are trying to deal with corporate overlords and gangs and drugs and all the really dark side of it, then 13-year-olds probably aren't ready to deal with the depth of that yet. Like that's something we probably don't start really digesting until like high school and then college, like those are deeper questions that you really start thinking about later in your teen years. Yeah, I think you'd want to prevent most of that. Like, I think a teen rated one could probably land it, but you'd really have to like Overwatch this up a lot. Yeah. Like those darker concepts are things you start dealing with in your later teen years when you start dealing with the philosophies of like actual dark topics. Because do you still go realism or do you go cartoon? I think you go more cartoony. I think that still appeals to a 13-year-old a little bit more. I would probably do it then. You'd probably have to go cartoon aesthetic, stylized. Yeah. So even something like Apex Legends is still a little bit more cartoony. Yeah. Borderlands, that kind of thing. Fortnite. Cyberpunk Fortnite. Yeah, you can go that realm. Well, you got anything else to share before we head out? This has been a fun kind of excursion into like what would that even look like? That's kind of fun.
Oh, that'd be crazy. Things are going stellar for Sea of Thieves. We're diving into lore this week. If you guys want to listen to like what's been going on with the actual story, the narrative that's going on in Sea of Thieves, we're covering that this week with some great guests. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I've loved the discussion that was going on in the Discord. It was nice to have someone pop in and say that they were really impressed with our predictions. I remember when I went back and marked down like how we did after that, because we were supposed to come back to it. We never remember to come back to it, but it was
maybe we should at the end of the year, because it'll mark the 1 year release of the game.
Let's do that then.
Maybe we'll do like an end of the year, like right at the end of the year, like right at the end of December or something like that. Yeah. That might be a fun, like go back and re-listen and kind of, check out our predictions. I'll have to dig those up. Yeah,
I'll dig it up.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Fun stuff. I've got my regular stuff going on, robotsradio.net, for all the different shows. Also, I've been streaming in the mornings. I'll either be working on some of the content, editing some stuff. Happy to answer questions. If you are a content creator or thinking about getting into content creation, whether that's podcasting or videos or whatever, and you want to ask questions, you're welcome to come by and I'm happy to answer those. Or you just want to hang out. I might be playing games, might be working on some content. So come hang out with me in the mornings. Every day during the week, twitch.tv/robotsradio. I'm happy to hang out with you guys, and I'd love to have you as one of my coworkers. Just hang out during the day. So I'll be doing that. Otherwise, stay tuned, because the Mass Effect Lorecast will be back this week. We took that's really creepy, Logan. He's doing weird things in the camera. We had to take last week off because of some stuff going on, but we will be back tonight, in just a few minutes for our next episode. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for being here. We'll be back with the next episode of the Cyberpunk Lorecast next week. Same time, same place. Stay safe in Night City, guys. We'll see you. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Cyberpunk Lorecast. This show is a part of the Robots Radio Network, smart podcasts for interesting people. If you'd like to help support the show, please tell a friend and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. If you'd like to get in contact, please send an email to cyberpunklorecast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @cyberpunklore. Also, join the community on the Robots Radio Discord. The link is in the show notes. The music on the show was written and performed by The Midnight and was used with their permission. Go check them out at themidnightofficial.com. Until next time, stay safe in Night City. We'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.